A quiet moment during a state visit suddenly drew global attention. Ladies and gentlemen, what followed spread fast online and of course shifted focus away from official talks or discussions. Behind the images, a much larger story was actually still unfolding. The event took place during an official visit by the President of Nigeria to Turkey. Ladies and gentlemen, the visit actually happened between January 26 and January 28, 2026. The Nigerian leader or president arrived in Ankara for meetings aimed at strengthening ties between the two countries or states. A formal welcome ceremony was actually held as part of the visit. Ladies and gentlemen,
Yes. Nasılsınız?
such ceremonies are common during a state visit and of course usually involve gas, music and of course official greetings. Okay, so during the reception parade, the Nigerian president missed a step. Okay, he missed a step and of course unfortunately he actually fell to the ground. Okay, so the moment actually happened in public view whilst cameras were actually recording the ceremony. The fall actually lasted only a short moment, ladies and gentlemen, but the video footage of the incident began spreading online soon after. Clips were actually shared widely on social media platforms. Many people watched the moment repeatedly, often without seeing the full context of the visit. Ladies and gentlemen, now attention shifted or changed from the diplomatic agenda to the short incident during the parade. At the same time, ladies and gentlemen, guess what? Official meetings continued as planned. Okay, so later that day, the president of Nigeria appeared at a joint news conference with the president of Turkey. Okay, the two leaders spoke calmly and of course formally, focusing on cooperation and of course shared goals. So there were no official statements suggesting that the fall affected the president or the meetings. The Nigerian president addressed issues related to democracy, freedom and of course economic growth during the press conference. Ladies and gentlemen, he spoke clearly and of course remained active throughout the visit. Officials from both sides continued discussions behind closed doors. Whilst the short incident gained attention online, ladies and gentlemen, the main purpose of the visit remained unchanged. Okay, so talks or discussions focus on long-term cooperation rather than brief or short moments captured on video. So the contrast between online focus and diplomatic activity became noticeable or visible as the visit went on. So this early stage of the visit set the scene for both public reaction and of course official engagement, ladies and gentlemen, now creating two parallel conversations that unfolded at the same time. Before we continue, as usual, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that to take a moment to actually like this video, subscribe to the channel or the community and of course turn on notifications. Okay, this helps the channel grow and of course allow more important people like you to stay informed through calm and of course clear reporting. Okay, so now ladies and gentlemen, let's go deeper. The visit involved two key leaders, the president of Nigeria and the president of Turkey. Yes, so both countries or states have maintained diplomatic relations for many decades. During this visit, ladies and gentlemen, officials discussed security cooperation, trade growth and of course shared efforts to support stability and of course different regions. After the fall, during the welcome ceremony, ladies and gentlemen, public reactions began to appear online. Some users shared messages calling for empathy and of course respect. One widely shared moment said, and I quote, "Growing old is a gift that not everyone is fortunate to receive. For that reason, I find no humor in the ongoing mockery of President Tinubu's alleged slip and fall incidents in Turkey. Whatever the cause may have been, empathy, not mockery, should guide our reactions to such moments." Quotation close. So this actually happened to be a social media reaction from one member. So other comment focus on leadership and of course age. Okay, some compared global leadership standards across countries. These reactions reflected broader public debate rather than official petitions. Government representatives from both countries did not actually respond directly to online comment. Okay, meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, formal talks or discussions moved forward. The Nigerian president explained that discussions covered trade expansion, business opportunities and inclusive economic growth. The goal was to support people willing to learn and of course work whilst reducing instability. The president of Nigeria, ladies and gentlemen, also said Turkey's role in supporting vulnerable communities and noted its effort in parts of Africa, including Somalia. These remarks were made during official meetings and press statement. Despite the attention on the fall, ladies and gentlemen, the visit remained focused on policy and, of course, cooperation. Officials continued working through planned agendas, showing that diplomatic processes often move separately from public reactions online. Ladies and gentlemen, to understand the importance of this visit, it helps to look at the wider relationship between Nigeria and, of course, Turkey. Both countries have had diplomatic ties since 1960. Over the years, ladies and gentlemen, cooperation has actually expanded into trade, construction, energy, education, and, of course, security. So during this visit, 9 agreements were actually signed between the two governments. Okay, so these agreements covered in military training, media cooperation, higher education, HALA standards, diplomatic training, diaspora matters, and social and women's affairs. Each agreement was actually designed to strengthen long-term cooperation rather than produce quick results or outcomes. Okay, so trade figures show growing economic ties. In the first 11 months of 2025, trade between the two states reached over $600 million, ladies and gentlemen. When energy trade was actually added, Nigeria became Turkey's largest trading partner in sub-Saharan Africa during that year. Security cooperation has also increased. Nigeria has purchased defense equipment from Turkey, including drones and, of course, attack helicopters as part of its effort to improve national security. Training and defense collaboration have also continued steadily. Turkish companies operate across Nigeria in areas such as construction, energy, textiles, and manufacturing. These companies, ladies and gentlemen, export machinery, food products, iron and steel, whilst importing crude oil and, of course, farm products. So more than 50 Turkish-owned firms are actually active in Nigeria now, with investment valued at hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay, so reactions online to the fall continued, but official responses or reactions is stayed focused on these broader outcomes, ladies and gentlemen. So the contrast highlighted how short moments can actually attract attention, whilst long-term agreements quickly shape future relations. Okay, so by the end of the visit, the focus among officials remained on cooperation, stability, and economic growth, ladies and gentlemen, rather than public debate. Okay, now, so looking ahead, the visit signals a steady direction in relations between Nigeria and Turkey. So the science agreement suggests continued cooperation in security, education, trade, and, of course, social development. So these areas require time, planning, and consistent engagement from both states or sides. So the public reactions to the fall show how quickly moments can actually spread online, ladies and gentlemen. They also show how public discussion can actually move in many directions at once. Whilst some voices called for respect, others raised broader political concerns. These reactions reflect social debate rather than official policy. So from a diplomatic view, ladies and gentlemen, the visit stayed on course. Okay, meetings were actually held, agreements were actually signed, and, of course, public statements focused on partnership and shared goals. Cooperation on counter-terrorism, trade expansion, and, of course, investment remains ongoing. Economic ties are likely to continue growing as companies from both countries expand their activities. Training programs, education exchanges, and media cooperation may also increase. So security collaboration remains an important part of the relationship. Continued training and equipment cooperation aim to support stability without public confrontation or dramatic language. So this visit shows how modern diplomacy often unfolds alongside social media attention, ladies and gentlemen. So short moments can actually draw focus, whilst long discussions shape outcomes quietly. Understanding both sides, okay, helps keep the picture balanced and, of course, clear. Thank you for watching. Please like the video if you haven't, subscribe to the channel if you are not yet, and turn on notifications to stay informed and updated with calm, clear, and, of course, respectful global news coverage like this. See you in the next update. I love you.